Hello and welcome to the Bandwagon Podcast, the show where we take a deep dive into the music industry. I'm your host Charlie Cooper, and my guest this week is the man of many hats, Kristian Lasham. Kristian is a guitarist, bassist, singer, studio engineer, live sound engineer, podcaster and YouTuber. As if that wasn't enough, Kristian also works for a major musical instrument and equipment retailer. Today we get into our history of working together, Kristian's past and current projects, as well as the technical side of performing music. Kristian, thank you for joining me today. How are you, mate?
Hello, mate. I'm all right. How are you?
Yeah, not bad. Been out teaching this morning and all sorts. Got a gig later on. Had a bit of a troubleshooting episode at my gig last night, which you very kindly video called me to help me figure out.
Well, yeah, you say I very kindly video called you, but you had sent me like a gazillion voice notes.
I had done. I was
until
panicking.
That point in a complete blind panic. And I'll tell you, Charlie, at the time you were doing that, I was eating a pizza with Jack whilst watching Fast X.
Okay.
Like Fast and Furious 10, and just all these voice notes coming through. And I have to admit, every time you sent me a voice note, I just went, just fucking text me.
I didn't have time to stop and text you because I was trying to fix it. I'd like one hand unplugging cables, one hand on the phone, like, fuck!
I was having to like pause the film in between each one. Listen to it back.
I am ever so sorry, but thank you for helping me get it sorted. Right, still haven't fixed the Bluetooth issue, but I've not tried since last night.
We'll have a look at that at some point.
Yeah, I'll have a look at that another time. But yeah, all good. So, just starting off, I don't really know anyone who wears as many metaphorical hats as you do. So you play several instruments and you sing, you studio production, live sound technician, you've managed bands before. How have you balanced that in the past when you thought there's been times where you've done all of it at the same time?
Badly. I've definitely not. I wouldn't say I've balanced anything ever. That's not me. I kind of just, you say I've worn all these different metaphorical hats. I don't think that's even the case. I just like throwing my hand at something and trying something and seeing what happens, seeing what sticks. I enjoy, I enjoy music. I enjoy the industry. I enjoy being creative and everything else, and just an excuse to do something and try something new along the way. Just it's fun. So I always like to see what I can do, see what comes out, what I come out with, and hardly any of it ever sticks. I'm always moving on to something else, which is why there's been so many things.
Yeah, I mean, you certainly have moved around. I mean, when I first met you through a recommendation when I was looking for someone to help me record a demo, I met you and our good friend Simon, who I'm hoping to have on the show at some point as well. And that was very much, I think, at the time you were playing bass in a band, I believe, at the time.
Sort of. That was someone I was doing some production work with, and then ended up for a couple of shows because he'd basically then booked some gigs as a band but didn't have a band. And as I'd been doing the production with him, I knew the parts. So it was just kind of come and play the bass line for me, and we just did a few gigs. It wasn't so much in a band so much as just we didn't have a single rehearsal, that group. We not a single rehearsal. The first gig we played was arranged the day before. He messaged us all the day before saying, I've got a gig tomorrow, I need a band, can you guys all come and play? We all knew the songs, we'd all been working on the recordings. So the first time we played together was the gig, and we didn't do a single rehearsal in the entire time we played together. It was just, and half the songs we played at the gigs were made up on the spot.
I'm really interested to know, how did that go?
Fairly well.
Yeah?
I think we all knew the parts, and we were all fairly confident, or competent musicians at the level of what we were doing, at least. And yeah, this is Danny Dangerously is who this was. Mm-hmm. And Danny's a great songwriter and a great musician. And he's a great improviser. He's a great freestyler. So he's really good at that stuff. And we just took his lead, and me, Mike, and also Mike at the time was the drummer. Mike Jones and Mike Bennett was the drummer and the guitarist. We just communicated well together, and I'd been playing with Mike Bennett for years anyway. He was in my band prior to that, and I've known him since we were both very young. So we'd been playing together for years anyway, and Mike Jones was just on the same page as kind of as a musician. So it was just we just threw it together and we just spoke to each other, and it was all really simple stuff. You know, the songs we made up on the spot were all 3 chords. We would
Sure.
just shout a chord sequence at each other, right? Do this one, D C G, and you know, Mike would start playing a little riff around DCG. The other Mike would just then drum along, and he was a good drummer, so we come up with an interesting pattern, and I'd just fill the gap on the bass, and it was just we just play around with it. That's all it ever was. That was
Mm.
never a serious thing for me either. It was just kind of a I wasn't doing anything else at the time. I wasn't in any other band or anything, so it's just an excuse to go and play some music.
Oh, fantastic! And I can attest that Mike is a great drummer. Played with myself a couple of times, and yeah,
Mm.
he is very good. So when it came to the, I suppose talk about balancing then, when it came to back with your production, both live and in the studio, you know, I see, of course, you know, that there are definitely things you need to know for both. And this is purely just from an observational point of view. I'm not experienced in either of these things. How was the balance running a business that did both of those things? You know, where one day you're in a studio, helping record potentially an album. One day you're out doing live sound for a band or a festival or an all-day event. Two very different environments. How do you sort of gear yourself up for each of those, particularly when you've got them going on in succession?
Well, there were 2 of us running it, so I looked after the studio side, Simon looked after the live side, and we kind of just had our roles essentially. So there wasn't that much balancing to do for myself because Simon would take over on the other parts. Simple as that,
Sure.
really. And the 2 of us just looked after the 2 areas, and there'd be crossover. We'd work together on each of those things, but a studio project, I was leading. Simon would assist. A live sound project, Simon was leading, and I would assist,
Mhm.
unless for whatever reason we needed to change that structure around due to other commitments. So there was a couple of times, for example, you know, and yeah, we haven't really gotten into it and how we know each other and what my history really is there. But obviously, I did a lot of live shows with you back
Yeah.
in the day of Mile High City. I mean, that's really what we know each other. That's really our foundation of our friendship. But there were many of those shows where it was just me and not
Yeah.
Simon. And there were many shows where it was just Simon. And that would just be a case of just working out who was available and who needed to do what. But yeah, I suppose that was the balancing act. There was 2 of us doing it. There was 2 of us doing the balancing. So there wasn't really much balancing. We were supporting each other, if that makes sense.
No, it makes total sense. I can actually remember an occasion where you couldn't be there for a morning where I was supposed to be doing guitar lines with Simon, and you
That
turned.
was one of the album. I can't
Yeah,
remember if it was the actual album tracking or if it was the demos for it. I can't
I
remember.
think it was the demos because if it was the album, I hope we both would have taken it more seriously
Yeah.
because you turned up from work around lunchtime. You'd worked the morning, and we'd got I think one guitar line done in 3 hours because we
Yeah.
just fucked about. I can remember us looking at our progress and Simon being like, he's going to fucking kill us when he gets here. We were both sort of like quite nervous about you. You turned up, and to be fair, you just went, for fuck's sake, come on, let's get on with it. And that was it. We moved on. We were both like, okay, we kind of got away with that.
Yeah.
And then I can remember after that was, I think there was a blanket ban on me and Simon working on anything that was just us two ever again. Someone else, either another band member or you, had to be there to supervise us.
Yes.
But we were
That was
never allowed.
absolutely the case. The 2 of you were not allowed alone. It had
No,
to
it
be at
was like
least
being
one
at school, being
person.
split up from sitting next
Yeah.
to your mate because you fuck around too
Yeah.
much. It's basically what you did to us. So nowadays you're playing in a very high production value Green Day tribute band. And that's something that I caught up with Chris recently, one of the guitarists and a former Mile High City guitarist as well, about how you're doing things. You've got sort of pre-recorded loops and things like that as well that you're playing along to.
Sort of. Not quite
Yeah,
loops, but yeah, sort of.
yeah. I mean that's how he described it to me, but I think Chris knows as much about that kind of thing as I do. So he's probably not quite explained it exactly. But so given that I don't have the best understanding of that, can you start by one explaining exactly what that is, the process around it, and what it's like playing along to those kind of things live?
So are you asking specifically about kind of like the tracks and the playback, or do you mean the band as a whole?
The band as a whole, and I guess the production value around that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, some of it probably takes some prerequisite backstory, I think.
Mhm.
to kind of give the full context there about what we're doing, why we're doing it, and how we're doing it. Um, so as you've kind of alluded to, I've had a number of different things I've done over the years. First and foremost, I see myself as a live sound guy, right? I've done the most of the stuff I've ever done has been live sound. That's always the stuff that I felt I'm actually best at. And if someone was asking me what's my strength in the industry, it's live sound, both from actually getting good sound, but also just producing a live show, arranging a live show, all that kind of stuff. That's what I think I am best at. Um, but ultimately, my inspiration and what made me want to start playing guitar and everything in the first place was Green Day. Green Day was the first band I heard that when I was probably 13, where I went, "What is this? I want to get a guitar. I want to learn guitar." That was the first. That was the first music I'd ever heard that really made me go that way. And I was into music before that. I was already playing other instruments a little bit, but that was the first time I went, "I want a guitar. I want to do this rock thing." You know. So throughout my entire career, if you like, for lack of a better term, playing music, that's always been a very, very heavy influence on me. And all I've ever wanted to do, if I'm honest, since I was 13, is play those songs that I love in front of people. They're the things I think I'm best at playing. And then just through a bit of luck, really, and meeting the right people for my current job, because as I haven't mentioned, but obviously I work for quite a prominent guitar store. So met some people in my current job that was also very much into the band, into Green Day, and wanted to do the same thing. So Tom Kinsella, who was the bass player for us, he wanted to do the exact same thing as the bassist, and we said, well, why don't we do it? We found a drummer that he knew. I knew Chris that could play lead guitar, and I knew he'd be up for doing it because he just wanted to play. He just wanted to play punk music in a band. He didn't really care what it was. He just wanted to play punk music in a band, and I knew he was a guitarist, and it all just kind of came together, and we were quite good. But what was always then circling around is I'm a live sound guy, so our live sound was my focus, and getting us to sound as close to Green Day do live was my priority and will remain my priority, because that's what I think makes a good tribute band, going and they're being as close to the original as possible and as authentic as possible and delivering as close to an experience as possible about being the actual band. But also that's what I find the most fun and find the most satisfying. And ultimately that's the reason that any of us do this. There's no reason any of us play music in any form. It's because we find it fun and satisfying and it means something to us. So for me to get that out of it, doing it to the highest possible level of production and quality and accuracy as possible is how I get that. But Green Day aren't just three people like a lot of people think they are. They've got an extra lead guitarist, an extra session guitarist, a keyboard player, a brass player, sometimes multiple other backing vocalists. There are only four of us. We can't do all of those parts. And some of the songs are a bit more complex and have a lot more of these parts quite prominently in the mix. And our options were find another 3 or 4 band members that are just as committed, just as local, on the same page of us musically, gel with us personally, and then have to split a paycheck between that many more people.
Yeah.
And you also, you've been in a band, you know how hard it is trying to get 3 or 4 people in the room together for a rehearsal. Imagine doing it.
Why do you think I'm a solo player now?
Exactly. And yeah, imagine trying to do that with 6 or 7 people, 8
Fuck
people,
that, yeah.
even. You know, it's just not. We have hard enough, struggle enough doing it just the 4 of us. You know, not if we start bringing other people in. So then it's like, well, okay, well, how else can we do this? Well, we can do it the way, honestly, nearly every other major band does it. And some people don't like to admit or hear this, I don't think, but most other major bands have some form of tracks that they're playing along to live. It's just the reality of it, because on the recordings in the studio, there's layers upon layers upon layers of parts. That's how you make a good production. And the only way to re-achieve that live is to either get that many musicians to play it or have the rest of it that you can't physically do with one person on a backing track. So for the more complex songs that need the more parts, need extra guitar parts, need piano parts that we can't physically play at the same time as playing the other parts, that's what we started to do. We started to compose and build backing tracks to play along to that just fills out the space. And then they're never doing the lead parts. They're not doing the lead guitar. They're not doing the lead vocal. There's no bass on them or anything like that. It's always supplementary things that you couldn't otherwise do. So one song would be Boulevard of Broken Dreams. I assume that's a Green Day song that you've at least heard.
Yeah, I think I can play it. I'll probably learn it in guitar lessons at some point.
Absolutely. That song has got a tremolo distortion guitar running all the way through it, two different acoustic guitar parts running all the way through it, a piano part running all the way through it, and then about three or four different lead and rhythm electric guitar parts. There's only two of us playing the guitar. So we could kind of somewhat split those parts up, but then you're always missing something somewhere. And that song is such a big, powerful song. As soon as you start removing those other parts, it doesn't have the same impact anymore. It doesn't sound as good. And then consequently, it doesn't sound as good as the rest of our set because the rest of the set is just two guitarists, a bass, and a drummer, where you don't need these extra things. So those songs sound really accurate in how they're written. Yeah. Then you get to doing Bit of Broken Dreams, which, by the way, is Green Day's best-selling single. So a song
I didn't know that, but that doesn't surprise me. I would have guessed American Idiot actually, but
it's up there. But Boulevard is their top selling single. So a song that we absolutely should be playing as a tribute band, you got to play their hits, so you've got to play their biggest one. Suddenly that song was the weakest one we were doing because it was missing all this stuff. So we went, well, let's just do it with tracks, and we recorded the rest of the tracks ourselves. So we haven't copied it from Green Day's multi tracks. We've recorded it ourselves, so it is us playing. You're still hearing us play, just some of it's pre-recorded. And we play along to those, and it makes a massive difference. And we're starting to do it with more and more of their songs because some of their songs are a bit more complicated, have these extra parts that are missing, and there are songs that we've kept out of our repertoire because it's not had these things that we wanted for the song and the final production of it. And now we can start bringing them in, and we're just slowly introducing more and more of them.
Fantastic. I mean, that's something I always find fascinating, technical side of things, because it's not something I'm versed in. What I know about that kind of thing, to be honest, it's just things I've picked up from what you've told me over the years, and I definitely one of the main benefits I've had from working with yourself and Simon Flint is the technical side of things that I didn't know before. Like I'd never even played to a metronome before I came in to record with you, and that's something that now I don't like doing it, but I can do, and maybe I'm through the other things, for example. Even things like how best to set up a pedal chain, all the way to the more complex stuff that you're talking about. I've just always found so interesting, which kind of leads me to my next question. So when it comes to actually performing alongside those tracks, what's the process of that? Are you all sort of in-ear monitored up and click tracks and that kind of thing?
Yeah, that's exactly it. So when we do those kind of performances, and we don't do that for every gig because it's not always feasible for the songs in the set. And also then the physical stage setup required to actually make it happen is a bit more complicated. So when you're turning up and playing at a pub gig where there's other bands playing, or an all-day festival, or like iFest that we're playing in a couple of weeks, for example, and local listeners will know iFest, it's not really able to do the kind of setup required to make it happen. Because yes, we're all on in-ear monitors, which means we all need an independent feed into in-ear monitors, which means everything on stage needs to be mic'd up and running through the sound system. Not necessarily going to the front of house speakers, but it definitely needs going through the mixing desk so it can go into our ears so we can hear everything. And then the playback device is running on software on a laptop, going out of an audio interface, and there's essentially a stereo channel which will be going to the main speakers, which has the backing tracks on it. That will also be going to our ears so we can hear it. But there'll be a third channel of audio also going out, which has a metronome, which is obviously synced to that backing track. And that is then being sent only to our in-ear monitors, not to the front of house speakers. So the audience can't hear the click track, but we have the click track. And it's a strange experience because you're playing live and you're hearing a click track all the way through. But it's also the best we've ever played because you're all well in time because you've got a click track all to lock into. And our drummer is really good at following that click as well. And we're all used to playing like that in the studio, etc. So that wasn't unfamiliar to any of us playing with a click. But yeah, it's exactly that. So we've got the click track going on our ears. That keeps us in time with the backing track, so make sure everything stays in sync. So there's normally pretty much all the songs have a 4-bar count before the song starts. So we know that after 2-bar counts. We know after 2 bars, we just start playing the song in time with the click, and when the parts where the tracks need to come in, they'll already be in the right place. It's already pre-recorded that way. And as long as we start playing after the first 2 bars, so 1 2 3 4, 1 2 3 4, start the song. As long as we start there, you're golden. Can't go wrong, really.
Yeah, fantastic. I mean, it's I've not heard you with that setup yet, other than a video that I've been shown. So I'd really, I'm really looking forward to seeing it with that setup. But some point and just listening out for that stuff.
Yeah, the frustrating thing is to do it, as I say, you need a more complicated setup on the stage,
Yeah.
because you could use in-ear monitors of just going, turning up to wherever gig you're playing and just giving them your in-ear monitor feed and saying, "Oh, can you send me some mix, please?" But you're then relying on someone else you don't know doing sound for you. You don't know what their setup's going to be. If they haven't got everything on the stage going through the sound system, you're not going to have a good in-ear monitor mix, which is actually then going to hinder you. There's no point having in-ear monitors at that point. You might as well just use the wedges. You'll get a better sound. And also, and I don't mean this as any offense to anyone, because realistically, everyone is at a different level, and local gigs and stuff like that, you don't know the level, that you don't know the operational level of the person doing the sound, and they might just simply not know how to do that, and you're relying on the idea that they do, and that's not always going to be the case. So we only do that when we kind of know that either it's a higher level production, like when we're playing like a bigger festival or something, or if we are in charge of our own sound, because then we're doing it ourselves anyway.
Of course, yeah. And of course, because that's something you've recorded and you've optimized for, that's something you can just go and set up for you pretty simply. But I can imagine an average pub tech, you're turning up to them and going, "Hey, there you go." They're going, "Ha, fuck off." What?
Chances are their system doesn't even have the capabilities to connect four in-ear monitors to it. That's the reality of it. It takes quite a big setup to do that. And probably most people's more somewhat entry-level PA systems just aren't built that way.
No, of course.
Because they're entry-level systems.
Yeah, I'm sure, for example, that the system I've got with the mixing desk, at least, it's only a 12 channel.
Yours has only got one auxiliary output, so you can only do it for one.
Yeah.
We need 4 people each of individual mixes. That's a full band. So, I've got a digital mixer here to my right. You can't see it. No one can see it because this is an audio only podcast. I've got a little digital mixing desk here to my right, which has 16 XLR channels into it. So I can have 16 mic feeds going into it. And it's got 6 separate mix outputs as well as the main output. So there's an output that then goes to the speakers, and then I can have 6 other individual mixes. So all individual levels. So that's perfect. We're able to plug, so the setup we do would be a kick mic, a snare mic, an overhead mic, and a hi-hat mic. That's what we normally do. If it's a slightly bigger environment, we'd maybe do like tom mics as well. But realistically, if we're playing anywhere that big where we need to mic up toms, they've probably already got a bigger system than what I'm bringing. So not really needed. So a kick, snare, overhead, and a hi-hat mic. Bass goes directly in. Our bassist doesn't use an amp. He goes directly through PA. He's got a little Sans amp, the iBox. My guitar goes directly through the PA. I'm not using an amp now either. I'm on an amp modeler pedal. Chris's guitar, he's got an amp, but his amp has a emulated output. So again, we take a direct feed straight into the PA. 4 vocal mics, the 2 left and right stereo feeds from the backing track, and then the click. And then it all goes into the desk. And then we're able to give each one of us a different balance. So we're each hearing something different. So for example, Chris, the lead guitarist, he does a lot of the backing vocals. He doesn't want my lead vocal. He doesn't want to hear my lead vocal very clearly. He doesn't need it very loud. He wants to hear himself more than anything. So he has my lead vocal only a little bit. And then Tom, the other backing vocalist, he doesn't want to hear his backing vocal at all, because if Tom is making a mistake or is doing something different, maybe it's a different part, Tom doesn't want to be distracted. Chris doesn't want to be distracted by that part. So he doesn't have Tom's backing vocal in his ears at all. And that's the point. Everyone can have something slightly different. Everyone can have the click set levels. It means we all hear better, which means we play better. And then that mixing desk is also then doing the front of house sound on a separate mix again. So just gives us more control. And I'm not, I've got mics on the drum kit, but that's not all going through the PA system. Doesn't need to.
No.
Doesn't necessarily need to. But they're plugged into
because you're wearing isolated monitors, so you can't hear them coming out exactly. From the drum kit. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's really interesting. It's actually funny enough. I had a conversation the other day. I'm starting up I'll still make solo my main thing, but I'm starting up a band as well, made for functions, that kind of thing, maybe the old pub gig to keep out there and keep active. And the bass player was asking if there'd be a way for him to use monitors as well for him. And I said, yeah, absolutely, if you're happy to have the same mix as me.
Yeah,
then that's absolutely fine.
Yeah. And that's the limitation of your smaller mixer.
Exactly. Yeah. Because at the end of the day, I bought that in mind of using it for a band as well, but first and foremost for myself.
Yeah.
So I was thinking, okay, a couple of wedge monitors out of that, they're my IEMs, then quality. And if he's happy to do that and have the same mix as me, great. If he wants to go and get the receiver and the monitors, then go for it. But well, there might have to be a bit of compromise made there, because he might want different things to me.
Mm.
Um, which is going to be tricky. But that's so actually I wanted to ask about with you mentioned there one question about tech and the
Mm.
modeler the amp modeler.
Yeah.
Now, what is that that you use? What modelers out there are you fond of from your job at Guitar Guitar that you would have come across things? And what's out there that you think kind of isn't really worth the money that they're charging? The reason I asked that is this one that I'm particularly interested in. I don't think I'll buy it because it costs £1,300, £1,400, something like that. But it kind of would have everything I'd want on it. I just don't think I want to pay that much. So
What
what
is it?
kind of things?
Is
It's
that
the
the
Fender
quad?
one.
Oh, the Tone Master.
Yeah. It
Yeah,
looks fantastic, but it's
that's
very
what
expensive.
our bassist uses because he works for
Really?
Fender. So
Okay,
he actually had a prototype before it was announced that he was using with us for about 6 months before the product had even been announced that he was using.
that's
So,
cool.
yeah, he's had that a while. It's great. It is very good. It's very powerful. I don't think it's the best one on the market though, but it is very good.
Got it. And what are you using?
So I am using the Universal Audio Lion, which is a 68 Super Lead modeler. So it's just one little pedal. It's not a modeler like a lot of other modeling amps out there now that do everything. This just models one thing. It models a 68 Super Lead. That's all it does.
Cool.
Um, but Billy Joe Armstrong plays for a Super Lead. So
Right.
to get Green Day's tone, I don't need anything else.
No.
I just need a super lead modeler or an actual super lead, which is massive, heavy, loud, difficult to maintain. You have to change the valves every 3 months. Not
3 months.
Yeah, valves don't last very long.
I've never changed the valves in my Fender.
No, yeah, you don't have to be fair, but to get the best out of it, yeah,
Sure.
valves don't last very long. So I've been using I'm getting it out for no real reason because again, you're the only one that can see it, Charlie. But it is just to give you an idea. Yeah, it is just a single little pedal, so it's not overly complicated, right? This one I've actually got in my hands isn't actually mine. This one belongs to Universal Audio. They lent this to me. Obviously, I work in a guitar store, so I do get a lot of fun benefits. So Universal Audio very kindly lent this to me to try it out to see what I thought of it. And I fell in love with it and have since bought one, and mine's due to arrive Monday.
Oh, fantastic. Oh, lovely. Brilliant.
Saturday,
Brilliant.
mine's due to arrive Monday. Because it is so good. It sounds like a massive Marshall, but it's a little pedal. And the idea is you don't plug this into an amp because it's an amp modeler. So you don't plug
it is your amp.
Yeah. You plug it directly into the PA system or into a powered loudspeaker. You couldn't just plug it into a guitar cabinet, for example, because there is no power amp in there. It's just a modeler. But it's modeling the sound of a speaker as well. So there's cabinet modelers on there too. So you can choose what type of cabinet you're playing through.
That's cool.
Etc. And it just sounds great. It just sounds like a Marshall amp without it sounds like a cranked Marshall amp. But I don't have to have a cranked Marshall amp.
No, that's fantastic.
And yeah, for me, it was like, for me, that these are 320 quid, so they're not cheap.
No.
Obviously, I get a staff discount price on that, but it's still a big chunk of money. But then the next option is to buy a bigger modeler, which does everything, and they say it's £1,500. And not that I don't think they're not worth the money, but they're not worth the money for me because I won't use any of the other things on it. I will literally load up a Plexi modeler and that's all I'm going to have. I'm not going to touch anything else on it because I don't need to. So for me, this is a better spend. Takes up less space. Put it in my current pedal board already. So I also run with a compressor sustainer and a blues driver. So I use the blues driver as a boost. And the compressor sustainer just helps kind of tighten up the tone a little bit.
Yeah.
Subtle, don't necessarily need it. I just find it helps. Just think.
Yeah, I'm the same. I'm the same. I think I never was interested in having a compressor sustainer until I was playing with Chris and he had one.
Same reason I bought one.
Yeah, and I said to him, "Why do you do that?" And he turned it off. And I went,
"Yeah,
oh, okay." Yeah. now I see it.
Yeah, it's one of those things that it doesn't feel like it's adding anything until you switch it off and you suddenly realize how much it's actually helping.
Yeah.
And admittedly, I haven't actually done this is new for me, so I haven't actually done a band practice with this yet. So tomorrow is the first band practice with this and not using my amp. And I might find that actually in the context of the band with this slightly different tone, I might not want the compressor sustainer anymore. But with the last
Sure.
setup, I needed that. So, but yeah, that's all I need. So I don't have anything else. Whereas the other modelers on the market are designed to give you as many options as possible.
Of course. Yeah, I can imagine that's really handy for like a session musician, particularly in the studio and that kind of thing. Um, with the tones of that model you've got, how do you deal with, say, for example, maybe you don't get into it as in detail as this, but knowing you like I do, I would imagine you do get into it in
Yeah.
detail. When, for example, I mean, maybe he's used the same amp for his career, I don't know, but at points in that sort of Green Day discography, yeah, put my teeth in, when he's using a different amp to the one that you're modeling.
Yeah. Essentially, you're right. With Green Day, he's always used the same amp.
Right,
He's
fair enough.
had the same two Marshall Super Leads since like 1992 or something. He said the same two, still uses them to this day. They're both modded. He runs them both, I think, in series. So he's technically got two running at once. But you can do a kind of similar thing with this Super Lead pedal. But yeah, he's always used the same amp. The differences in Green Day's guitar tones over the years comes from his guitar.
Sure.
He's used
Yeah.
different guitars for different eras,
And you've
and
got about 100 Les Paul Juniors, so
it's not even the juniors, mate. It is as simple as the Les Paul Junior pretty much for anything modern. So basically P90 for anything modern, which is just a little bit brittler, a little
yeah.
bit cleaner sounding. And then on his Strat, which is Billy Joe uses the same Strat that he was bought for his, I think it was his 17th birthday or something like that.
That's
Still
really
to this
cool.
one
Didn't know
used
that.
today, which is a Fernandez Strat. So it's a cheap off-brand Strat, which has since been modified to buggery. So he's got a Seymour Duncan SH4 humbucker pickup in the bridge position at the same angle of a Strat single coil pickup. So for any guitarist, you'll know what I'm talking about. So that bridge single coil pickup in a Strat is at an angle, isn't it? It's like a
Yeah.
45-degree angle. So he's got a humbucker there. Normally on a HSS Strat, the humbuckers are then parallel to the bridge.
Yes.
He's got it at the same angle, a 45-degree angle, like the single coil would be. Um, and Tom, the bassist in my band, he has a classic vibe Strat, which he has modified in the exact same way. So he's
Nice.
had the exact same work done to it. It's got the exact same pickup in it at the exact same angle. He's blocked off the trem, so there isn't a trem anymore. That's all been blocked off because no need for it. And I use that, and he's put the stickers on it like Billy's. So Billy's guitar, that guitar I'm talking about, but Billy Joe's is famously known as Blue. He calls it Blue because it's a Daphne Blue guitar, and he's got stickers all over it. Tom's classic vibe Strat is pink, and he's put the same stickers over it, so we called it Pink. And that's
Yeah.
so everything kind of old era, and that's basically everything in E flat. So Green Day play over in E flat or standard. It's pretty much everything E flat, which is kind of like Dookie, Nimrod,
Yeah.
in some of that kind of era. We play with that, and that's how I get that tone. And anything more modern, I switch to a junior, and then that's the modern tone. I don't have to do anything else.
That's
I
great.
just change guitar, and that does it. And then I might do what I did before with the Black Star I was using. I had two channels of the same amp preset, but one with a little bit more gain. Um, which I also occasionally would put in for a song that needed a bit more oomph. This line pedal has a boost, which basically does the same thing. I'm either running it just to channel dry or a boost pedal, which puts you a little bit more gain on it. So I can do the same thing. If I want a little bit more oomph, I've got the boost. And then if I want to cut through, if I've got a solo or anything like that, the blues driver does that for me. I whack the blues driver on, and then that lifts me up because I've got the blues driver set really not actually giving me any more gain. There's only a small amount of gain on my blues driver. It's the level. I've got the level quite high.
Mhm.
So when I
So use it
stretch it
more
on,
as a volume boost than
I'm
anything.
using it more as a volume boost than anything. It kind of does something else because there is an extra bit of drive coming through and then the bit of character from that circuitry. So it does do a little bit more than that. But really, I'm using it as a volume boost just to bring
Yeah.
me above Chris if I've got a lead part.
I used to do the same thing with my MXR micro amp, which is kind of like a blues drivery, tube screamy style pedal, and that's pretty much what I used it for. Just a tiny bit of gain and a bit of.
I honestly think Tube Screamer style pedals are better used as boosts.
I agree. I agree. I mean, I feel like if you want a distortion, like an overdrive pedal, have an overdrive pedal as well. Use that separately.
Yeah,
Whereas, like
exactly. Exactly.
I've got an OD3, which is a great pedal. I've never ever had a distortion pedal actually, which is a bit strange. It's probably should invest in one of
Not
those at
really
some point.
been like the sort of music you've always been playing, they've never really had a need for it.
Not really, no, particularly as a rhythm player.
Yeah, and
I'm
like
more delays and reverbs and things like that.
and the amps you've been using as well, like you've been using like Blues Juniors and stuff like that, which will gonna have some natural breakup, and then you start driving that harder with your overdrives, you're gonna get a bit of a
Yes.
natural distortion anyway. So you've not really had a need for it.
No, I mean, what we used to do in Marhigh City was use my Marshall Class 5 as a glorified overdrive pedal.
We did, yeah.
And then I'd either use an A/B switch or you'd just bring it up in the mix
Yeah,
when I needed it for choruses to have that crunch, and I'd essentially be Y cabling
yeah,
with none of my pedals going through the Marshall, the more going through the Fender, and then you would maybe put a touch of natural reverb on the PA for the Marshall, and then
exactly. Yeah.
essentially use that. And I can remember think it was Ryan, our bass player from who's now in Slow Time Monday, saying to me like, "This is the most unnecessarily big pedal ever. Like you're using an entire
Yeah,
5 watt valve amp as a
yeah.
distortion pedal. What the hell's that about?" And he's like,
Sounded
he didn't
great.
even have an amp. He just used to use. I think it was even yours. Or was it a Line 6
It was
pod?
one of my old,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
But that sounded great doing that. But all the fucking best. Sorry, I keep swearing on the
That's
podcast,
right.
and you said you want it censored.
No, no, no. I said your one per show is a no per show for this one.
Okay, you did say that.
Which we'll get onto that one. Other than that,
Yeah.
say pretty much whatever you like.
Okay, well, that's dangerous. But I think all like the most interesting sounding bands are normally ones that have experimented with different things or using something in a way where there's probably a simpler way of doing it or an easier way of doing it, but that works. Um, there's nothing wrong with that. I think if it works, that was the gear we had at the time. We went, how can we
Yeah,
get the sound? We got all this stuff. What does that sound like? And we played around with these different ideas and these configurations, and we got some sounds that we liked, we thought sounded good. So yeah, do it. And if we've got a way of making it work, we've got a way of making it work. Why not? No reason not to. That's
absolutely.
what's fun, by the way. That's why I like live sound and production stuff, and I love all this techie stuff. That's what's fun, experimenting with the tech and seeing what you can get out of it and making the best out of what you have. Like I speak to so many customers on a daily basis that are always on the hunt for new bits of gear. And you're talking to them and you're trying to get an idea as a sales guy, trying to get an idea of what they're trying to achieve so you can point them in the right direction. But so many of them don't know what they're trying to achieve. They're just looking for the next thing, or they're not happy with what they've got. And I always think like, but what have you got? And they list off all these amazing amps they've got and all these amazing pedals that they've got already. It's like, you've got everything. Just go and play with it. Go and play with all the stuff you've got and see what you can get it to do. Stop using it in the conventional ways. Stop using it in the ways you've always used it. Try something else with it and make the best out of what you've got. I don't believe that there is the one perfect distortion pedal or there's the one perfect amp or anything like that. That doesn't exist. Every amp can sound great. Every distortion pedal can sound great. Every guitar can sound great. If you spend the time with it, you can get a good time out of it.
Yeah, definitely. One thing I find that with my students, at least, what they don't realize is your amp's half your tone.
Yep.
And they'll go and I've always said, like, if you've got £1,000 to spend at least a third of it on your amp.
Yeah,
At
absolutely.
least, if not a 50/50, because you can go and buy a £400-500 Squire or Epiphone and then go buy a £400-500 amp. It's going to sound great. You can either buy a £200 Epiphone or Squire and a £600 amp. Great. If you buy an £800 like Fender and a £100 10 watt
Little Fender
plug-in
frontman
like
G.
AXA, whatever they were
Yeah.
called back in the day, um, it's
It's
going to
gonna
sound as
sound
good as the amp.
yeah,
It will
it's gonna
sound as
sound like a Fender frontman G and nothing else.
exactly. I can remember.
You could put a 4.5 grand custom shop in it, it's still gonna sound like that little amp sounds. So
Exactly, and this is just it. And I can remember. I think actually, I'm pulling this direct quote from you. Is from a tech perspective and from a band perspective. In many ways, you're only as good as the weakest
yeah.
link in your chain. And that is just it. And I've always well, sometimes there's been situations where I've not been able to afford the best version of the thing I need, and I've needed to get kind of a cheaper option as a stopgap. But
Yeah, and there's
I'm a
nothing wrong
big
with doing
believer
that
in
if that's what
spending
you
the
have to
money
do.
on. Absolutely, yeah. If that's what you have to do, there's not at all. But I've always been a believer in, well, spend what you can. I'm not saying go and get the most expensive thing, but if you've got a budget, go and find out what the best thing is within that budget. If you can stretch a bit over, and it's like, say if stretching over another 50 quid is going to get you something significantly better, which has been the result of many of my conversations with you when I've been
Mm,
looking for stuff. You've said to me, yeah, you can get that, or if you save up another 50 quid, you can get this, and it's 100 times better. And
yeah,
I've done that on
yeah,
lots of times. And one of them, I'm very lucky to know you and be able to ask you those questions, because I wouldn't have a clue what I was doing with a lot of things. This PA I've bought recently, I pretty much said to you, I've got this much to spend. Go do what you will,
Yeah.
and bring me back a quote, and you did. So I think my only thing I had amended was I'd like in-ear monitors. That was
Yeah,
it.
that was
Other
the
than
only
that, I was
thing you
like,
added.
great, I'll take everything you said.
Yeah.
And I think that's all part of it. And you know, what's great about where you work, Guitar, they got a great ethos on helping people and making sure people get what's right for them rather than just sell as much as you can.
Well, yeah, because it is as simple as this. We exist as a shop to make money. So the only way we make money is by selling the right products. Because if we sell you the wrong products, you're going to bring it back.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's not
And
helped us.
there's
Like if everyone
yeah,
brings everything back, we're not making any money. We're giving it all away, and then all that stuff been brought back, then have to sell for cheaper because it's been used by someone else. So that doesn't work. That doesn't work as a sustainable business. What
and
you
I've
need to
had
do is sell people the right things, and then they don't bring it back. But what they do instead is they come back another time to buy the next thing from you because they know you're going to help you find the right thing. It's
yeah,
it's it's as simple as that, and I don't think it even really comes from like, oh, we want to help. No, no, we want to be a sustainable business, but to be a sustainable business, you have to help. That's how you do it.
I've had exactly that experience there of not being sold the right thing and being made to feel like I'm an inconvenience and like, oh yeah, this, get out of the shop. And I
Yeah.
won't name the shop for legal reasons. We'll call them Slack. But they appropriate in two ways there. And I can remember going in there once. I wanted to have a look at a delay pedal, and I wanted to see how it worked with my guitar. I knew the likelihood it was they were going to have a Blues Junior in there, so I could check out what it sounded like. Part of the casing, I asked them if I could try it. They was like, "Well, you going to buy it?" I went, "Don't know yet. Need to try it." And they're like, "Oh, unless you're going to buy it, you say you're going to buy it when there's no point in us unlocking the case." So I went to Anderton's the next weekend and did it in there instead. And they were great. And I think that's the ethos, isn't it? It's that um, it's same as what the music companies, which sadly in Crawley, which sadly shut after 30 years recently. They had the same thing. It was that they had the time of day for everybody to make sure they got what they needed. And I think that's it's not rocket science, but that is the trick, isn't it? That
Yeah.
that is the successful business model there for a shop.
Absolutely. And I think a lot of people, because Guitar are quite a big brand, we're one of the largest in the UK. I think a lot of people assume that, where there's big corporation and we're out to get everything out of everyone. And that's really, really not the case. We're an employee owned business. We're really well looked after by staff, by the company, like as staff. Um, we all want to do well. We want the business to do well, but to do that, we have to give a really good service. And we're all musicians. We're all musicians. We've all been there. We've all been to guitar shops just as much as we work in them. So we know what makes a good experience. And I think, yeah, I think a lot of people just sometimes even write places like us off, because they just assume that we're this big greedy corporation, and it's really, really not the case. Really is not the case. We are doing everything we can all the time to try and improve our service, improve what we can offer, improve how we do things, because we want to be the best.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the ambition, isn't it? I think it's to be as good as you can be in everything. If you can do that in every walk of
Yeah.
life, then you're
And
you're onto something.
you're not going to get everything right, and you're not going to
No.
please everyone, but that's the reality of the world. But I think we do a really good job, at least in our branch. I can't speak for the other branches per se, but at least in our branch, I think we do a really good job of being friendly, open atmosphere, trying to help people find the right product, giving everyone the time and attention they need, not fobbing people off, not just selling people whatever they think they want, and actually trying to find them the right things. I think we do a really good job of that. So
Yeah, absolutely, and everything. I mean, I get that impression from your web chat when I've used it. I always enjoy coming into the shop. And now the music company's shut. I mean, that guitar's going to be my main shop, probably
I
more online than anything,
do
but
believe
still.
I do believe music company. I might be wrong, but I think they're only shutting because Amanda, who runs it, is moving.
Amanda hasn't run the shop for quite a few years.
Oh, has she not?
No, no, no. So Glenn has been running it for a while. Amanda kind of went off and did her own thing. I believe it
I
was
didn't
in
know
like
that.
t-shirt print design.
Oh, I did not know that.
I spoke to Glenn a while ago, and it shut him because essentially Glenn's had enough. He's been doing
Oh,
it
fair
30
enough.
years. He wants to retire. So I think what they've got like a warehouse out in Godston, I believe it was.
Yeah.
So I think they're going to kit that out to be a bit more of a workshop.
Yeah, because I'd
More
heard that there was a move to Godston happening. I'd heard that. So I just assumed that was Amanda moving, but okay, fair enough.
he keeps changing. I think Glenn keeps changing his mind on what he wants to do. But
Yeah.
When I chatted with Glenn a while ago, he basically said that a man had got sick to death of dealing with musicians, and I was
I
like, yeah, I
can
get
understand.
that.
Yeah, I can understand. I mean,
Completely.
I love those guys. They were my first music shop. I bought my first guitar from them.
Yeah,
I
me
bought
too.
my first gear from them. Simon and I bought a lot of gear from them. Would go to them all the time. And actually, the only reason I stopped shopping there is because I then started working in a guitar store. So,
Of course.
in no offense to the music company, I'm not going to go and I get it cheaper at the shop I work in. So it's
Yeah,
like, and it's
but
also I'm in that shop every day. It's far more
of
convenient
course,
to
yeah,
get it from the
exactly. And
stuff
I think
later.
as well, something that's really ruined a lot of the big guitar shops is from conversations I've had with not just the music company, but other independent shops as well. The bigger companies, i.e., Fender, Gibson Epiphone, Roland Boss, is decision to kind of put a bit of a
Yeah.
minimum, such a large, expensive minimum order per year.
Yep.
Like sometimes it's 40 to 50,000 pounds as a minimum spend, and a shop like that isn't going to then be able to stock those really popular brands that sell themselves essentially. And you'll go in there and there'll be brands, for example, that I'd never heard of that are really good brands that
Mhm.
they'd sell in there. For example, SX is as good as any other brand for beginners, I think. Seagull, Lag, all these great
Seagull makes some good
brands.
stuff. We used to
They
sell,
do.
we stocked Seagull for a while.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. But they can't because they're selling it. You're walking in, you get people walk in with the idea if they want a Epiphone Hummingbird, for example. They walk in, they go, "Oh, we haven't got that, but we have got this. It'll cost you 100 quid less because it hasn't got the Epiphone badge on it, and it does the same job." And immediately people going, I don't know, I may have my heart set on the Epiphone, and they go to a larger retailer, And I think that's had quite a lot to do with why a lot of these shops have stopped really making any real money, and why we went from having 5 or 6 guitar shops in Crawley to one to now none. Which is really really sad. I mean, that kind of shows the way the music scene's gone in Crawley, though. I mean, it only seems to be picking up again more recently in the past couple of years, whereas it used to be pretty thriving quite a long time.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, the music scene in Crawley is not what it was, but I think everything ebbs and flows, isn't it? And peaks and troughs. That's
It,
everything.
it
So
does,
it'll
it does,
bounce
and
back, I don't doubt.
I mean, I think it is bouncing back, to be honest, because they're doing things like the council will get involved with things like Crawley Live and the
Yeah.
bandstand stuff and all of that. They're
Honestly,
trying to bring stuff back.
all it will take is it takes someone. It takes someone to go, well, I really want to do it, and to go and make it happen. That's what it will take.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I'm having a bit of a pop. I'm starting my own open mic, which starts next month, as we've discussed, and looking forward to hopefully having you and the guys down at that. Um, and it will be, that maybe there's something to be said for there. But I'm playing so many gastro pubs at the moment where I'm just
Mm.
background music. It's
Yeah, I
not
remember
really a
you mentioned
scene.
that on one of your other episodes
Yeah,
with Michael. You mentioned that,
yes, yes, I did. Yeah, and that was what last night was essentially.
right?
Tonight I'm playing a very well known Crawley pub, the Snooky Fox, opposite Three Bridge Station, and that's always hit and miss. I'm hoping because the Premier League starts today. People started yesterday, sorry, but there's games on today that people will stick around after the match.
Mhm.
And I'll probably go down there early to watch a game and then set up and kick off from there. Um, but we'll see because it is hit and miss. I mean, last time I played in there was some sort of altercation that had to be investigated, and I had to wait to go in there. But I physically wasn't allowed in to set up. So hopefully nothing like that happens today. Fingers crossed. I haven't just jinxed it. Um, but yeah, I mean, with your approach to something I've always thought you've been really good at is the way you communicate with the people you work with, studio, live, whether that's
Mm.
with Simon, with me, with other band members. When I first started Mile High City, for example, Ryan was very inexperienced. It was his first band. He was 17. He only started playing bass about a week before our first gig. He was playing guitar before that. And for example, the way that you were able to not just him, but all of us educate us in lots of ways. I'm sure you've done that with your own band, other artists you've worked with. How do you tailor your approach to people? Say, for example, someone like me who came into the studio for the first time, never done it before. How do you tailor the way you deal with someone like that when you have been, for example, working with people who do really know what they're doing and have a lot of studio experience?
Good question. Not sure. Not sure. I mean, I don't know. It's probably just something that comes somewhat naturally to me, I think.
Mm,
Uh, I mean, a lot of this stuff is all teamwork. It's all about working as a team. And as I said earlier on, I like to get a result. That's how I get my enjoyment out of music is by finding a standard and aiming for it, or doing, but it's a team game. It doesn't work on your own. It doesn't work on your own. And everyone on a team has different strengths. Um, so I don't expect anyone to know everything or know how to do everything or be as quick at picking things up as someone else. I don't expect that to be the case at all. So I think it's just patience and understanding, and simple as
Mm.
that. Just be willing to provide a little guidance, and then most importantly, be willing to accept a little guidance yourself as well. I don't know everything. I absolutely don't know everything. Yeah, the one thing that I think I'm confident on, as I said, is live sound. That's the thing I'm confident on in
Yeah.
my ability. Everything else, I'm incredibly insecure in my ability, and I'll learn and take guidance from anyone that can give me any form of advice or little tips and tricks and whatever, because that's how you improve. That's how I improve. So I just see that with Mile City, for example. I can think back to the first time that I met you, Chaos, by the way.
Yeah, did my car
Um,
break down on the way
yeah,
home?
you were late. So this is when I was running the little home studio set up, and you say it was you were recommended, or we were recommended to you by a mutual. So your
It was my
cousin,
cousin, yeah, yeah.
yeah, who was then a friend of ours from school. So just a mutual there. So booked a session with you. I think you just wrote. I think if I remember rightly, at this stage you were sort of throwing some demos together because you were trying to put the feeders out to get a band starting.
Yeah, that's exactly what it was.
Yeah. So we weren't doing anything too in depth. It was just throw some demos together. Cool, no worries. We were still quite new to doing all this studio work ourselves as well. We hadn't had too many clients, so we'd happily work with anyone at this point because it gets us more experience and more practice, and the more people I can work with, the better. And yeah, I think you were about an hour late because your car had broken down, and then you'd also gotten lost, I think, trying to get to
Uh
us.
it wasn't so much I got lost. I think it was when the car broke down. Um, I was just sort of in a bit of a panic. I was like, all right, fuck, where do I go from here again? And then
Because I'm pretty sure Simon had to come and meet you
so no,
somewhere.
what it was. No, you've just reminded me. Simon did come to meet me. Because I think he was like, oh, I can give you a jump, but we ironically got the car
Oh,
started when
right.
he
Yeah,
got
you're
to
right.
us.
Yeah, yeah,
And I was like, okay, great, let's go. Pulled up the road, I broke down again.
yeah.
So Simon was like, where the fuck is it? And it was like, I've broken down again. So it wasn't like I got lost as such. It's just Simon,
Yeah.
would have taken Simon a few minutes to realize I wasn't behind him anymore. And then, yeah, I think that
And
was it.
then and then when you did turn up, you turned up with a McDonald's because you'd been such a long time doing that. I think you were hungry, and you.
That was a different
Oh,
occasion.
was that a different
That was a
occasion?
different. What
Okay.
happened was there was one time where I'd gone for a bit of a rough couple of weeks, and I went out and got on it. I was meant to be recording the next day.
Oh yeah, yeah,
That
yeah.
much later, I thought, and I just called Simon half an hour after I was speaking. Go, do anything from
Because that
McDonald's?
was the same day where the chip evolved.
Yes, it was into a
That's
potato wedge or something.
an
Yeah,
inside joke there for the
yeah,
list.
very, yeah,
Um,
yeah.
but yeah, so I remember eventually got you there, and you came in, and uh we know each other really well now, so I hope you don't take any offense to this. But you came in, big bumbling mess that you are, all over the
Yep.
place, you're right panic. I'd always go, all right, mate, yeah, sorry, your car broke down, this happened, whatnot. Eventually get in, probably smash your guitar into something, knowing you, like complete
When
chaos.
I in a panic, I fall to fucking pieces like that,
You
and
do.
it shows physically. So like, even when I think I'm okay, I'm okay now. I'm not. Like
Yeah. You're
I'm
still
still
really
feeling that
flustered.
after effect of it.
Yeah. Um, and then obviously we didn't know what to expect, hadn't met you before, hadn't quite worked out you and the way you were and everything. And but then you started showing us the songs that you'd written. And yeah, they needed a lot of polish. But
Yeah.
the core idea of the songs, the two songs, it was Stellar, and I think
Uh,
I
prob
think Panic, I think.
yeah, probably panic. Yeah, I think it would have been. Yeah,
I think it was Stellar. I know it was definitely Stellar.
yeah, Stella would have been one of them.
And I think Panic was the other one. And they were great. They were just really, really good. And it was the first time I'd worked with anyone coming in with original music where I went, holy shit, that's a good song. Like, there's a good song there. That was the first time that had ever happened. It'd always been most people I've been working with were coming in recording covers, or the originals. They were just frankly were not good. Sorry if any of those people are listening, but that's just the reality of it. They just weren't. And Simon and I worked out pretty quickly that what you had was something I didn't have. and still don't have, which is the ability to write a good song. And I don't think I've got the ability to write a good song. That's one thing I've always struggled with. I've always struggled writing songs. But what I'm good at is taking a song, like a core idea of a song, and turning it into a finished piece.
Yeah, you
Like
absolutely are.
that's what I
Definitely.
think I'm good at, is taking that core idea and go, right, now how do we make that a full final production? And what you had was these songs, but none of the rest.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. What I'm good at is I'm good at creating a canvas.
Yes.
I'm really good at laying that landscape. I'm like, right, here's the idea, here's a chord progression, here's a riff, a basic idea I want for a riff, and here's the lyrics.
Yeah.
And I'll have a rough idea on what harmonies I want. And then we're
Yeah.
working with you and Chris
Yeah.
in
I
particular.
was gonna mention Chris in a minute. Chris is also very much, he's got a canvas, and then he gets the ideas of how to bring the rest together, but doesn't know, gets the ideas of what it should be, but doesn't know how to get it there.
Yes,
That's kind of Chris's
absolutely.
thing.
That's where I feel like the
Um,
three of us working together were a
absolutely.
really good team.
And what happened on that first session was, you know, there was a story out of it. You were a nice guy. We got on. The three of us quickly realized that we had the same sense of humor, and you, me, and Simon just got on really, really well.
Yeah,
Lucky there that dynamic worked in the way it did, but it just did.
yeah.
And I just saw that guy knows how to write a song, and yeah, maybe needs some work in some other areas. Like we worked out in that session, you'd never played to a click track before,
Mhm.
which was, and I just kind of like, well, if we're going to do this well, you've got to work out how to play to a click track. There's only so much I can do.
Very
I can't
reluctant to
do
do
that. And you were, but
that.
and then that was the other thing. Also, early days, you trusted me. Early days, you went, "Look, I don't know anything about this. Cool, I'm going to trust you."
Yeah,
And you trusted me. I trusted you. You trusted me with your music, which is great in itself. And then I trusted you to work with me. And early days, it was like, he's got good songs. And I thought, I think I can do something with these songs. So I then wanted to keep working with you.
yeah.
That's what happened to you. I wanted to keep working with you because I wanted to see how those songs came out, because I thought I can bring those songs into something great. So then from there on out, the rest of it, and this now circling back to what your question was of tailoring my approach to that, was I wanted to get a result out of it. So I needed to work out, what does Charlie need? What guidance does he need from me? What can I learn from him to get the result I want, which I want these songs to be great. And it's because I had an end goal. I wanted these songs to be great. And the only way that was going to happen is if you and I were on the same page, working together and learning from each other. And then that was just something that we kept going. And as everything developed and I feel like as we went through it as a group, you, me, and Simon really tailored together, putting Mile High City together. We found the right people together, because Simon found Chris. Don't forget,
That's right. Because didn't Chris teach Simon guitars back in the
Simon
day?
taught Chris guitar back in the day. Yeah, we're around.
Chris,
Chris taught Simon,
yeah.
yeah. Chris taught Simon guitar back in the day. Yeah, and obviously he worked out he'd be a good fit, and he was, and it
Yeah,
just
he was.
everything worked from there. And then when we did get to doing the album, Playing the Matches, and if anyone who's listening to this has not listened to Charlie's album, Playing the Matches, please go and listen to it, because I get royalties.
You get your share of the 0.002p.
But it was still kind of trying to complete on that vision we had that first time you came to the shed and showed me Stella and showed me Panic, because those songs are on the album.
Yeah,
Very different versions to the ones you first brought us, but they're on the
hugely.
album.
And then there are other songs that I wrote along the way, and
Yeah.
yeah, it's
And it was, yeah, I wanted to get that done, and I wanted to hear how it all came together. And although looking back at it, there's things that I reckon I could do better today from a technical point of view, maybe even things I would do differently today because I've learned things. What we did, I'm still really, really pleased with and really proud of. I think we took the great songs that you had, Chris, and written, and I don't think there's one bad song on that record. I think they're all really, really good songs. And we turned them all into pieces of music that someone could listen to, which
yeah.
they weren't beforehand. They were
No,
just, they were a blank canvas and an idea.
well, I can remember a musician I know, a guy called Andy Lewis. He's a bassist and cello player. And he's had a very, very solid career. For example, he played in Paul Weller's band for years. And I met him through BIM when he came to do master classes. We just got on well and stayed in touch. I sent him the demos, and a couple of years later, I sent him the album, and he was like, the improvement from those demos you sent a couple of years ago is like astonishing. It's so big. Even from the EP we did, which was muddled together because we had members leave during that process, and I had to come in and play lead guitar parts I didn't know.
Yeah, the EP was muddled together from the demos as well. Like they were built from the demos. They weren't fresh productions. They were just overlaying what we'd already recorded as the demos. And
Yeah, there were two songs that were new. There were
yeah,
two of the songs
Summer's
that were
Gone was
new.
on there, wasn't there?
Yeah, and
And
Color of My Dream was as
yeah, an
well.
early Color of My Dream.
Uh,
The final version of Color of My Dream that ended up on Matches is I think actually one of your better songs.
yeah, I like that one. My favorite one that I've wrote is the title track. I just love the breakdown at the end, and for me, that's Chris at his best.
Oh yeah,
That
yeah,
song,
absolutely.
he's just so, and Tom, to be fair.
Yep.
I feel like whilst vocally it's not my best performance on the album, I think just as a piece of music to listen to, from everyone else, not me,
Yeah.
particularly his performance. I think it is so good, and the production value on that is so high. It's I remember hearing that back and kind of like not really believing it was us, you know,
Yeah, yeah,
like that we got that out of
yeah,
four guys playing in a blooming studio in someone's garden that we used to
yeah,
hire to rehearse in Hawley, you know.
yeah,
But yeah, and the fact that we recorded that in a shed in your mum and dad's garden,
yeah,
you
exactly.
know, as well. It's
Imagine what we could have done with it if we went to a proper studio.
yeah,
And that's
God,
that's the thing where I'm at now. Like now there is a few. So Hawley, the Hive Rooms in Hawley is open since then,
yes,
and that place is amazing. It
yeah,
is
I want to get
amazing.
in there.
Not even just as a rehearsal studio, just in general, everything about it. But they've got like two proper studios, and I'd love to. You can just dry hire them, so we could just go in. You're not hiring a tech. We go in as the tech and we use their space. And I'd love to see what like we could have put together in a room like that, in a better
Well,
sounding room,
I
because
am writing
you're always
again,
going
you
to
know.
be limited by being in a shed. You're going to be limited by that.
Yeah.
Um, I'd love to do that, and even with something unpredictable, my band, secretly, I would quite like to do originals, to be honest. And I'd love to go and record an originals album in there. I'd love to do it, see what we can come up with. Yeah, and I think it's also important to stress, we've been talking about all this and like the stuff I've done and the stuff we've done and been kind of making it out to be this big, amazing thing. But nothing I've ever done has ever been successful. And I don't care. I don't care because that's not why I'm doing it. I'm doing it because it's fun and it's satisfying to bring something together and go, well, I made that. And I made that with the help of these people and we all did it together. And yeah,
Yeah,
it's what
and
it's
the
about.
people who have heard it, because music's a roll of the dice just as much as it is having actual any talent or skill. The people who have heard it, really enjoyed it, and we had a community
Exactly.
around that followed us, and
Yeah.
like, it was great. I mean, my probably my proudest thing about that is how well Ryan's done since we
Oh
started
yeah.
on Mondays, and I've got them on the podcast next
They
week
again,
actually.
very different band to when they
Very
first
different
started.
band when
It's
it started. They're a covers
amazing how
band.
much they've come on to being an incredibly professional, uh, tight, slick band.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And it's a real, put it this way, Ryan's a great advert for my guitar tuition business.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So that's all. He's fantastic. I mean, sort of lastly, I wanted to comment to a bit, and this is away from music. You know, I've got a bit of a podcasting history. We did two episodes of the True Tone podcast, which I think four people listened to.
Yeah, and that
Uh,
was that you, me, and Simon were three of those four.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. To be fair, I did used to get when Black Dog was open. I used to work behind the bar. I used to get some of the younger guys in there coming and like, so, oh yeah, I listened to that. That was good. So
All right.
and they, I think it was just because they knew us and
Yeah,
wanted
yeah.
to listen. They found us a bit funny anyway, and they just wanted to listen to that. And
We are frankly hilarious. We've been really tame on this.
oh yeah, this is like very PG
Yeah.
compared to what we normally do, and that brings me on to your other project, which I think you're doing a bit more casually nowadays than
Yeah.
you used to with our friend Jack and our friends Jack and Rich.
Yeah.
Now, I was part of this group for a time, and essentially life and my business got in the way to where my weekends were taken up by gigging, and I couldn't really appear on the podcasts anymore. But what a laugh and what a great community you've got there in the Discord, your regular listeners. Tell us a bit about that. Tell us a bit about Rabbit Hole.
Uh, one of the most fun things I've like one of the most fun creative projects I've ever done has been Rabbit Hole Media. Um, Again, completely chaotic in many ways, a complete failure, but kind of don't care because it's just been fun. And you know what? It was nothing more than an excuse to meet up with my friend and talk about video games. That's all it was. It was an excuse to do that, and we had fun doing it. So Jack, we both used to work at Game together part time. And I'm a big fan of the video games industry. I enjoy the video games industry. I
That's
enjoy
a
what's
big thing we've got in common outside of
yeah.
music, you know?
Yeah, but what I like in particular is what's happening in the industry, the business side of it. I find it very interesting. I find it
Yeah.
interesting, like analyzing what the different studios and stuff are doing and the different business decisions that are going on. I find it interesting. I just do. Don't know why. I don't know why that industry in particular. I just do. And so does Jack. And when I worked at Game, he was one of the only other people that really followed the industry. So we used to talk about that a lot, and we used to listen to the same gaming podcasts as well. And then we both left games that went our separate ways, and we still carry on like texting each other about this stuff. And as I say, both listen to the same podcast, and we just came up with this silly idea of why don't we do our own podcast where we can talk about the video games industry together? Because it's an excuse for us to meet up and talk about the video games industry, and we kind of had our own opinions that we wanted to say. So we just did that, and then as it went on, mine and Jack's little work friendship turned into quite a strong friendship. Like he's one of my best mates. And I've only known him for 7 years or so. I mean, that's a long time, but
Yeah, but at
compared
the
to,
time when you started the rabbit hole that time ago, it wasn't that long. Yeah.
yeah, and compared to like my Tom Whittle, who who's been my best mate since I was
Yeah.
12. It's very, and you and I must have known each other for over 10 years by now, I reckon.
Yeah. Easy. Easy.
So and that all was born out of that we was doing this stuff together, and we just had fun doing it. And we were lucky we built a little bit of a community and whatnot. We've tried with different creative ideas and done some like kind of funny skit videos and more serious like reviews and stuff like that. We've also had done our hand at music. There's a few covers we did. If
Yeah.
you remember or if you saw
I
that
do. I do indeed. You did Bad
Lincoln Park
Guy,
and
and you did Lincoln Park one,
yeah,
there was a short of Jack singing "Put Your Hands Up," the Bo Burnham song,
yeah,
which
there was, yeah,
I it's absolutely fantastic, to be
yeah.
completely honest.
But honestly, yeah, it was nothing more than an excuse to try something else, do something else creative. That's what I said. I like doing. I like making things. And then talk about something I find interesting with a friend of mine. That's all it ever really was. And yeah, it's kind of died down a bit now because we did it for a long time and it was a lot of work and we saw limited success and we weren't seeing any growth. And we started also simply just not enjoying what we were doing and also started to enjoy the video games industry less. The video games industry has taken a turn and isn't like it was 7 years ago, 6, 7 years ago when we started it and when we were passionate for it. It's not the same anymore. And we were kind of losing our interest in the subject matter. So when you're losing your interest in the subject matter, it's quite hard to do an entertaining podcast.
Yeah, I'm sure.
And then we were looking for trying to find ideas of things to talk about, which was just so forced. And hearts were never really in it. We never really fully committed, which is why, like you said at the beginning there, the stuff we used to do together was chaotic, even when you came and did stuff with me. Because hearts were never really fully in it, so we weren't committing to planning and prepping. Like you've prepped these shows that you've been doing. You've had planned questions and stuff like that. We didn't have anything like that because we weren't. I don't think we were fully committed in that regard. We wanted to do something, but we didn't want to put any more effort in than what we needed to, or what we felt we needed to, and that always hindered us. Whereas now, what we're starting to do at the moment, and we're still kind of just trying out things still to see what works, but we've actually got an interest in wanting to do like the little projects we're doing right now, the little videos we're making at the moment. We actually want to make these things, so it's not being forced. It's not us going, oh, what could we do? We've actually just organically come up with an idea. I had an idea of this. Oh yeah, that sounds fun. Let's make that then. It's come from an organic place as opposed to us trying to force an idea out. So at the moment, it's a bit more fun again. We're putting a little bit more effort into it, but I don't think it will ever go back to what we did before, where we were doing multiple shows a week,
Yeah.
because it's just not feasible. The amount of time that took, like there was a point where we were recording 2 podcasts live a night, and each one
Yeah.
was half 2 hours long, and you're doing 3 4 hours of live streaming on a Saturday evening after being at work all day and having to go to work again the next day. And then also having to deal with all the post processing side of it, publishing it, all of that hassle, for 4 people to listen, and one of those 4 people disagree with your opinion and then fire abuse at you. It just became like this isn't what we want to be doing. So
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I didn't realize how much of a deal the sort of foreign abuse side of it was, and I was on quite a few episodes. I remember being then from not even have to do the production side of it. On the episodes I was on, coming out of the house for 3-4 hours on
Mm.
on a Saturday night, which was it Friday or Saturday night?
I
I
think we
either
were doing it Saturdays back then, but I don't
yeah,
remember.
which isn't feasible for me to do now because I'm
Yeah.
working. Hence why I kind of took that step away because I was like, well, I know if this is what I'm going to do with my career and build towards that, I'm going to have to let you down too much. So that's kind of why I made that decision as much as uh, re regretfully because I really
Mm.
enjoyed doing it. But I mean, I know that a lot went into it because you say that your heart's went, you didn't put a lot of planning into it. You still put a lot of work in, even if there was
Yeah.
no planning. There was a lot of work there that I could see, and some of the most fun I had with you guys was when it was open ended, when it was right. What do you think about this film? And then one of us would say something, an innuendo would get made. We'd go down the rabbit hole over that,
Yeah.
I'd say something that me and my nickname the problem.
Yeah,
Um, you know,
you were a problem.
I was a problem. Funny enough, I was talking with Dave Walker, who I've got coming on the show in a couple of weeks. He is a DJ, but he also hosts the West Ham Way podcast, which I'm contributed live at the pre-match events playing music, and that sort of got to know him a bit better. And I was telling him about his podcast, and I said, "Oh, because of I'm teaching, I've got students that might listen to this, so I can't be the problem anymore." And he's nicknamed for me now as the solution. Uh, but that was I was a problem, wasn't I? Just thinking back. Some of the things, but one of which involving a bottle of bleach, which I won't
Yeah,
get
yeah, yeah.
into.
I can. I just thought of that a minute ago. I was trying to work out a way of shoehorning that joke in.
Without
A,
actually, yeah,
A couldn't work it out, and B, there would have been no context. It would have not been funny.
it wouldn't have been. Even if we explained it now, people would be like, "What?"
What?
Like,
Yeah.
that's not funny. What are you on about? But there's some great stuff. I can remember sometimes though, Jack would say something, and
We all did, mate.
I'd be
We
sitting there
all
watching
did.
it and being like, "And I'm the problem."
Yeah,
Like,
we all did. We
um,
all said
oh yeah,
horrendous things regularly.
Rich was better behaved.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Much better behaved. In fact, there'd be times where he would be like, "Right, I'm putting a stop to this.
Yeah.
We need to move on." And he would be as the slightly older gentleman of the four of us, a bit more mature.
Yeah.
He's a father.
Yeah.
That kind of thing.
That's why the nickname for him was Father.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
He was
So it was
Father Rich.
father the problem, the Jeremy Clarkson the video games. But did you have one?
No, don't think
No.
I did. No, I was just Jack's platonic husband. That's always
Ah, okay.
reference I was given. I don't think I had anything else. But
Because there are nicknames I know for you that I'm not going to say here
yeah,
at the
yeah,
risk of
that
offending
that is not
anyone.
suitable for this
No,
show.
it's not.
Not even
No,
that it's particularly offensive or rude or anything like
no,
that.
no, and it's said with a lot of love. It's just you don't know how people are going to take things,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
didn't they? Which kind of leads me to something that I was going to ask you about, and if it's not something you want to discuss, I'll just cut this bit out entirely. Um, Something we've got in common in different ways is we're both very neurodivergent.
Yeah.
I'm ADD8/ADHD and dyslexic, and you're autistic. Now, I hear people say all the time about those kind of things actually being quite helpful when it comes to being creative, and I can see that. I can
Mhm.
also see the negative when I get into an absolute flap, don't know what I'm doing, bumbling around, as you say, calling you in a panic when the answer's actually right there in front of my face. Like, for example, yesterday it was try a different DI box. I'm
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
oh yeah, shit. That kind of thing where my brain won't work that way. But then there's also things like the work ethic and the creativity, that kind of thing. How do you find that? Do you think it has much of an impact or not really?
Um, no, I don't think it does, and that's honestly because, and my thoughts on this, I think, are quite unusual, and I don't think a lot of people ever fully understand when I try and explain this, especially as someone that has been diagnosed with Asperger's syndrome. I don't believe it really exists.
Okay.
Because I think everyone is different.
Yeah,
I don't like the phrase neurodivergent. That's a fairly new term.
it is. Yeah.
I don't like it because neuro brain diversion different.
That's everyone. Yeah.
Everyone's neurodivergent. Neurotypical isn't a thing. That would mean everyone's the same. That's not a thing. No one's the same. Everyone sees everything differently. Everyone reacts differently. Everyone processes things differently. Everyone experiences differently based off their perspectives, their upbringings, their feelings, their opinions, which are formed by their surroundings. Everything is different. Everyone is different. So I kind of just don't. I don't ever think about it. I don't like to think of the fact that when I was 5, a psychiatrist told my parents I had Asperger's syndrome and I fit into this particular section of a particular
Mm.
spectrum. Well, I don't like that. I don't
Yeah.
get it. And for years, I spent a long time living with this kind of idea in my head. Well, I do this because I fit into this category I've been told I should fit into. So that's the way I feel. The way I feel. That's the way I. That's why I feel like this. That's why I think this way
Yeah.
because of this thing that I was told I this is how I should be. And I was told I should think and feel these things because of this diagnosis I was given. And then almost started using that as an excuse.
Yeah.
Started using that as an excuse for things. I started using that as an excuse for being impatient. I started using it as an excuse for being intolerant. I started using an excuse for having short patience or short temper. Sorry.
I'm a bit cold just
Yeah,
because of my autism.
yeah. Whereas then at one point I had a bit of a shift where I thought, well, maybe that's just kind of just took that definition out of it. Is when everyone feels something slightly different. Everyone sees things slightly different. Everyone has their struggles. And as soon as I took that kind of that diagnosis out of it and that name out of it and that um, suddenly I felt a bit more freedom, if you like, to just be,
Yeah.
yeah, that's just how I
Yeah.
find things. That's how I deal with things. That's how I process things. That's how I feel about things. That's how I think about things. That's me. And just simple as that. And then from there, I don't see it. I don't think about it. I don't think about it on a daily basis. It doesn't cross my mind unless someone mentions it. Really, I make the odd joke. I'll
Yeah.
make a joke about the fact that I'm into trains because I am into trains,
Yeah.
and that's incredibly autistic.
Yeah. It's almost a archetype,
It's an
isn't it?
archetypal cliche and stuff like that. And I like making jokes about these things because
Of course.
I think I honestly I think anyone should be able to make a joke about anything. It's a joke. It's not real. I think
Absolutely. Yeah.
humor in the world is very important. Otherwise, we'll be miserable. Um, so I like to make a joke about it, but I don't ever think of any of this stuff earnestly.
No, no, I think it's really great because what you said there, I think it's really interesting because I've heard um, someone I spoke to more recently in the sort of medical world of all of this, for want of a better expression, that the way that people are starting to see it now, or that professionals are starting to see it now, is that there's a spectrum that absolutely every single person is on, and
Yeah,
it's just you might sit in a different part of it as someone
but
else does.
see, by that point, I think that's mental because then there's no need for the spectrum.
Exactly,
If
exactly, yeah, yeah,
everyone's in it anyway, there's no need for it. There's no need for the categories. There's no need for the spectrum. There's no need for the titling and the labeling. It doesn't need to exist. It's pointless. All you're doing by that point is actually creating limitations for people. That's all you're doing. You are telling someone you fit into this bit, so that's the way you should be, and you fit into that bit. And I think that's the same across most things in society. By the way, I think that's people society puts these ideas in people's head that you must fall into this category. Even as simple as when I was at school, I was bullied for being an emo
yeah.
because I liked Green Day. And then I just remember as a kid. Sorry,
Oh, yeah.
I remember as being a kid, like being obsessed then with this idea of, well, hang on, I'm not an emo, I'm a punk because Green Day aren't technically what? It's nonsense. It's just all nonsense. It doesn't matter. But like constantly as a kid, just felt as though that like having to fit into this category, and if people labeled me as part of the different category, then that's not right. I'm in this category. What? And I think that's the same with so many different things in society. And I think that's actually the bigger problem because you're forcing an idea on someone that you have to fit to this particular structure, this particular stereotype. You have to fit to this set of rules. And if you don't, you're not a part of this. You're
Yeah.
forced to this instead. And then all it takes for someone to go, but I don't want to be in that. I want to be here. And then you start having all of these issues and these identity crisis issues. And I mean that across the board with everything. I mean that with everything.
Yeah.
So I just don't think about things like that because it's not worth the stress. So in terms of how I deal with, how it affects me musically or creatively or in social environments or whatever, I find some social things harder than others. So I've learned to work around that and learn to manage those things as I can. Um, that's about it.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's about it. There's nothing else to it. I don't think about it otherwise. I
And
just get on
this,
with it. I do what I do.
yeah.
I like what I like. I feel how I feel.
And this is it. I'm not diagnosed with autism, but I get serious sensory overload.
Yeah.
Really, really do, and I know that's something that's more typically associated with autism
Yeah.
or Asperger's or um. So hang on, does that make me autistic? Probably not.
But there will be a psychiatrist or medical professional out there that would say, yeah, no, it does.
Yeah, yeah, there would
And
be,
there'll be another one that doesn't, by the way. There'll be another one that
yeah,
disagrees with them and says, no, it doesn't.
and this is it. And these are all labels that other people are giving each
Yeah.
other. And what you said there about the Green Day emo thing, God, I got called an emo for wearing some bad t-shirt, but it was someone like Kasabian, the enemy. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
it was, okay, if that makes me emo, then okay, whatever. You know, if it wasn't like it was Fall Out Boy or Panic.
Yeah.
You know, like or even Green Day. It was really very strange. But it was again. I think it goes into this real tribalistic thing, which I subscribe to in some ways because I do it through football. You know, so
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm not going to sit here and point fingers and then not recognize that I am capable of this tribalistic bullshit thinking. I
Yeah.
absolutely am.
And also, to
Uh,
be clear, if someone that has been diagnosed neurodivergent or whatever it might be finds that they find it easier to navigate life with that in mind and contemplating that, and if they find that easier, more power to them.
yeah,
For
yeah.
me, I found that diagnosis a hindrance more than anything else.
Interesting. I mean, I find it helpful with certain things. For example, like if I get frustrated with myself
Mm,
for not understanding something or forgetting something or doing something wrong order, take a breath and go, okay, yeah, it's funny that there are times where I do find it helpful, but what I don't find helpful is overthinking it. You know, thinking
yeah.
about it too much. Like I make myself laugh with it, like because I'll read a word and go, "There's no way that says what I think it says because it's got no context,"
Mm.
and I'll realize what it says and I'll laugh at myself. My favorite example, and this is very very topical. There was a pub called the Asparagus, and I was looking at the sign like, there is no way they have called that pub the Asperger's. They just haven't. There's no way. And I twigged it and I realized, and I can remember vividly taking a picture of it and sending it to you and just putting one
Rings,
guess. Yeah, just saying
rings
one
a
guess.
bell. Let's ring a bell.
So there's the lighter side of these things as well. But I honestly I think I agree with pretty much everything you said there, and you've said things that I haven't necessarily thought about before about this kind of thing. And as a teacher working with kids, many of which are on, for want of a better word, some sort of spectrum,
Mm.
in some space. You know, it's going to be a very helpful thing for me to take with me moving forward.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. Yeah. I say everyone's going to handle it differently, but that's the main thing. Everyone's going to handle it differently.
exactly, kind of bring it back to the whole point in the first place.
Yeah.
You know, but
Yeah.
yeah,
No. So for me, it's like I don't mind people talking about it, asking me about it, whatever. But I don't think I have that interesting an answer because very much like whatever.
yeah.
Someone told me I have this thing once. Cool.
What's more interesting is that Simon hasn't got a sense of smell.
That's definitely more
That's
interesting.
way more
That's
interesting.
genuinely fascinating. I think.
Yeah, yeah. That's absolutely nuts. And like I found that out so long after meeting, like 3 or 4 years
Yeah.
until I knew that.
It's not the sort of thing that would just come up in conversation casually. To be fair,
No,
so
it's not. To be fair,
it'd be weird if like, or even formally, it'd be weird if it's like the first time I meet. Hi, I'm Simon. I can't smell. That would be weird.
I also would have appreciated it because I like it when people are just a little bit weird, just to see how people react. You
Yeah.
know, like yeah. As I can remember my first night at BIM, we had like our induction, and then there was like a freshers night we went to,
Mm.
and this guy I will never forget him came up to me, looked literally got about an inch away from my face, went, "My name's Ed, and I'm on ketamine," and walked off. And it
Yeah,
was one of the greatest moments of my life.
that sounds like someone on ketamine. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, it sounds like someone who goes to BIM.
Yeah. I can
Uh,
believe that.
Christian, thank you so much for your time. This has been great. Really looking forward to seeing the band again. I've actually only managed to ever see you on one occasion just because of calendar clashes,
You
essentially.
you coming to
Uh,
iFest?
I'm hoping to. I am hoping to.
Have you
Yeah,
got
I hear
tickets?
there's a few more. I haven't, but I hear there's a few
I,
more.
as far as I'm aware, it's sold out. I would maybe get in touch with either Russ or Mike Jones, or see if your old mate Ryan can hook you up.
Yeah, I think Ryan did mention something about sneaking me in through the back door.
Yeah, as far as I'm
Uh,
aware, it has actually officially sold out.
it's amazing. Look at how far iFest has come since it started. Well, I
Mhm.
think Mile High City played the first iFest.
Yeah,
We
we did
played the
sound
first
for the
stuff.
first iFest. True Tone
Yeah,
for the first one.
it makes sense that we would have paid if you were doing sound. I'm probably sure you probably would have just arranged a slot for us, but
Probably.
yeah. But no, I'm hoping to come to that. Will that be with the higher production or not so much?
No, that'll be a little bit more down the middle.
Yep. No,
Typical
fair enough.
band setup. So.
We're still very much looking forward to it because Chris wasn't even in the band when I saw you last, and
No,
I know this
Chris.
because Chris was sat next to me,
Yeah,
wasn't you?
he came to the gig. Yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely brilliant. Thanks again. Really looking forward to it. Hopefully, we can do this again sometime later down the line. Maybe we've got something, maybe another project between the two of us to talk about.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I
But
know
yeah,
you've said there's stuff that you want to do, and that you want me involved, and I'd love to try and work out doing it. So yeah, 100%.
absolutely. Yeah, I'm writing at the moment, and yeah, I actually played one of my new songs at the Battle of the Bands as well. So
Oh, nice.
yeah, so
Well, yeah. See, I mean, that's what I really want to do. I really want to do original stuff with the current band. To be honest, I think the band lineup's great. I think we work really well together. And as we said earlier in the show, Chris is an outstanding songwriter.
yes,
And our bassist Tom Kinsella is also a really good songwriter. The two of them have both written some amazing songs. And I
I mean
think
it's
the
a
two of them,
no-brainer.
I think the two of them together could write some really, really good stuff. I would love to do it. I'd absolutely love to do it, but not sure if everyone's quite on the same page with it or not. We've also kind of got this focus on, well, hang on, well, this is the project we started it, and we haven't really got this base part of the project to the level we want it at yet.
Sure.
So maybe we shouldn't distract ourselves with doing other things because we haven't got this bit where we want it yet. But I would love to do it.
So, what is your intention then with the project as far as being a tribute band goes? Do you want to be doing kind of like, you get some of the bigger touring tribute bands, for example, the Smythes, who are sort of, tour every year and that's their thing. They're known as the tribute band to that band. Is
I
that the
mean,
ambition?
that would be pretty amazing, but that's a very, very high goal. I think for us, we just like to, when we get to like the summer periods where like the festivals and tribute acts festivals are on, if we could be kind of booked up over that summer to play a fair few of them and make an extra buck along the way, then I think that's pretty much where we want to be. Where we could just book a gig and go, right, we're going to play a gig and they're going to pay us X amount of money and we don't really need to rehearse for it because we've already got our set prepped down to a T. We know what we're doing and we can just go and do it. That's kind of, when we're there, I think then we've got the freedom to start messing around with other things.
Yeah, fantastic. Great. Well, I really look forward to seeing whatever that develops into and watching it along the way as well.
Me too.
I'm sure. Lovely. Well, thanks again, Kristian. It's been absolutely brilliant, and yeah, I look forward to seeing you soon.
Yes, I'm sure we'll I tell you what, actually, Charlie, what we need to do.
Yes.
We need to do you need to come and meet my dog.
Yes, I do.
And we were gonna try and do like a joint dog walk thing, but we need to do
We
that.
were, we
Just as a
were.
friendly.
Yes, we'll have to see. Ernie's a lot better than he was when you last saw him, which was quite
Yeah.
some time ago now.
Well,
And
Kida's only 6 months old, so she's chaos. But we want to expose her to more things and more people. So
well, what would be good there? She'll learn how to. She will be exposed to a very mouthy dog,
yeah,
who will bark at her consistently for 10 minutes and then probably calm down and warm right up to her because that's what he tends to do.
yeah.
He gives it large and then he'll be her best mate. So
And that will hopefully shut her up for a bit because she's so jumpy. She doesn't bark. She's just so jumpy and excited when she meets new people or new
oh
dogs.
bless. I'm really looking forward to because I've not met her yet. So yeah, that'll be great.
Cool.
Nice one. Lovely. Well, I will let you go and thanks so much for joining me.
No worries, mate. Thanks for having me. Good fun to chat about stuff and things. It's always good. So yeah, no, thank you.
Thank you. Cheers. Bye.
Bye-bye.
You've been listening to the Bandwagon Podcast with your host, Charlie Cooper. You can find us on Facebook and Instagram at the Bandwagon Pod. You can also subscribe to us on Spotify, Apple Music, Amazon Music and YouTube Music for future episodes.